Every man has that one night he never forgets. For him, it started with a knock at midnight. The rain had been falling for 3 hours straight when the knock came. It was past 11 at night, and Caleb Moore was securing a loose shutter on the back porch of his small house in Cedar Falls, Iowa. His 9-year-old son, Ethan, was already asleep upstairs, wrapped in blankets with a flashlight beside his bed in case the power went out again. The storm had already knocked out electricity twice. When Caleb heard the knocking, urgent and desperate, he grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen counter and walked through the dark hallway toward the front door. He opened it to find a woman he had never spoken to, but instantly recognized. Rachel Whitmore stood on his porch, soaked through her expensive coat, clutching a small girl against her chest. The child, maybe 7 years old, shivered violently, her face buried in her mother's shoulder. Rachel's voice broke as she spoke. She asked if they could come inside, just until the storm passed, just for a few hours. Her daughter was freezing. Caleb looked once at the little girl's trembling shoulders and stepped aside. He didn't invite them in because of who Rachel was. He invited them in because of the fear in that child's eyes. Caleb had lived in Cedar Falls his entire life. He'd been born in the same hospital where his wife died 7 years earlier, 3 weeks after giving birth to Ethan. Sarah had been the kind of person who made everyone feel seen. She taught 3rd grade, volunteered at the animal shelter, and filled their home with warmth. Complications had taken her suddenly. Caleb was 29 years old, holding a newborn with one arm while signing funeral papers with the other. The grief hollowed him out so deeply that some days he forgot how to breathe. He never remarried, never dated. He threw himself into raising Ethan and running his small electrical contracting business. He fixed wiring, installed panels, replaced outdated systems in houses older than he was. Quiet, reliable, trusted. He still lived in the 2-story Craftsman his parents left him. Mortgage-free, a backyard oak tree, a 12-year-old truck he maintained every Saturday. He didn't want much from life anymore, just to keep Ethan safe, loved, and far from the shadows of the past. Rachel Whitmore was everything Caleb wasn't. She was the CEO of Whitmore Industries, a company with 400 employees and contracts across the Midwest. She was the kind of person who appeared in business magazines with headlines about leadership and innovation. Wealthy, powerful, confident. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, Rachel was just a terrified mother. Her daughter Lucy had been asleep when Rachel made the decision to run. Marcus, her ex-husband, had been calling all day, calm on the surface, but dangerous underneath. He was flying in early. He wanted to discuss custody. Rachel knew what that meant. Court battles, investigators, accusations, months of emotional warfare, all aimed at tearing Lucy in half. Inside Caleb's dim hallway, Rachel looked nothing like the iron-willed executive from magazine covers. Her hair hung in wet strands. Her expensive coat dripped rainwater onto the floor. Her shoulders trembled with exhaustion. Caleb brought towels. He knelt in front of Lucy and asked gently if she wanted hot chocolate. Lucy looked to her mother for permission, and that small gesture, seeking approval before accepting kindness, tightened something in Caleb's chest. In the kitchen, Caleb heated milk on the gas stove the way Sarah used to. Upstairs, he heard movement. Ethan appeared on the stairs, pajamas wrinkled, hair pointing in all directions. His serious expression faded when he spotted Lucy. He asked if she wanted to see his baseball cards. In 10 minutes, the 2 kids were laughing on the living room floor while the storm raged outside. Rachel watched them with an expression Caleb recognized all too well, the look of someone who had forgotten what peace felt like. When the children were occupied, Rachel apologized for showing up unannounced. She said she didn't know where else to go. Her hands trembled around the mug Caleb gave her. She talked quietly, words spilling out like a dam breaking. She told him about the divorce, the custody battle, the investigators who photographed her at midnight, lawyers who billed $800 an hour, friends who were paid to betray her, judges who treated wealth as proof of good parenting. Marcus had resources that felt endless, and tonight something in his voice had terrified her. The storm raged. The windows rattled. The children eventually fell asleep on the floor surrounded by baseball cards and blankets. Caleb checked on them every hour. Ethan slept with one arm thrown protectively across a pillow. Lucy slept curled beside him, thumb in her mouth. Caleb felt something shift inside him. Around 2 in the morning, a car crawled down the street. Rachel stiffened instantly. Caleb watched from the window as headlights swept across the yard. The car didn't stop, but the damage was done. Rachel trembled. She told Caleb Marcus had investigators who followed her, photographed her, tracked her credit cards. He asked her what she was really running from. She answered honestly. She was running from a man who had never struck her, but who had made her afraid of every shadow. A man who saw his daughter as a trophy, a system that rewarded wealth, not love. Caleb understood. He thought about Ethan. He thought about losing him. He thought about his quiet life, his routines, the walls he'd built. And then he looked at Lucy's sleeping face. He told Rachel she could stay as long as she needed. There was food in the fridge, clean towels, a front door lock he would check twice. Rachel cried silently. The next morning, Caleb made pancakes. Ethan asked if Lucy could eat with them. Rachel watched the kids argue passionately over chocolate chips versus blueberries, and for the first time in a long time, she smiled. But trouble found them quickly. Caleb returned from the hardware store to find Mrs. Patterson, Cedar Falls' legendary rumor engine, chatting with Rachel. After the old woman left, Rachel told Caleb someone in a gray suit had been showing her photo around at a gas station. With Illinois plates. The whole town would know by nightfall. Rachel's phone rang. Her lawyer Gerald Marcus had filed an emergency motion, accusing her of kidnapping. The hearing was in 4 days. Marcus's team had collected everything: photos, statements, travel records, twisting her life into a portrait of an absent mother. Rachel began listing all the ways she believed she'd failed Lucy. Caleb stopped her. He asked only one question. "Are you a good mother?" Rachel hesitated. Then, quietly, she said yes. She loved her daughter more than anything. Every late night, every sacrifice, every struggle was for Lucy's future. Caleb told her that was the only thing that mattered. That night, a dark car parked outside for 30 minutes. Engine running. Windows tinted. Caleb stood at the window with a baseball bat. Rachel curled into herself on the couch. They said nothing, but they knew they were being watched. The next morning, Caleb acted. He called his deputy sheriff friend, his paralegal cousin, trusted neighbors. Then he bought and installed 4 security cameras, spending money he'd saved for a new water heater. Rachel asked why he would risk everything for people he barely knew. Caleb told her simply, he didn't like bullies. Saturday evening, Caleb's phone rang. Chicago area code. Marcus. His voice was smooth, practiced, dripping with false warmth. He thanked Caleb for helping, talked about co-parenting, legal complexities, father's rights. Then his tone shifted. He mentioned Caleb's electrical license, his business, his reputation. It wasn't a threat. It didn't need to be. Caleb listened patiently. Then he asked Marcus one question. Do you know there are 4 children in this house right now? They can hear everything through these walls. Whatever you say next, they'll remember it for the rest of their lives. Caleb told him he wasn't a lawyer or a businessman, just an electrician from Iowa. But he knew what a real father looked like. A real father didn't use his child as a weapon, didn't terrify her mother, didn't play power games with innocent lives. Marcus was silent. Then he hung up. Rachel had been listening from the doorway. Something changed between them in that moment. They were no longer strangers. They were allies. Sunday brought a fragile peace. The rain stopped. The children played under the oak tree. Lucy brought Caleb a dandelion and asked him to help her make a wish. When she smiled afterward, a real smile, it broke something open in him. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. At 9 o'clock, a black sedan pulled up. 2 suited men stepped out. Behind them, a silver Mercedes parked. Marcus got out, tall, confident, polished. He walked up Caleb's path like he already owned the outcome. Rachel stepped onto the porch before he reached her. Her fear was gone, her posture straight, her eyes steady. She told him he wasn't welcome. Anything he had to say could be said in court. Marcus smiled, a cold, practiced smile. And the battle truly began.